Podcast. Hello and welcome to Retrotainment, episode 11. This week we're going to dive into one of the biggest films in the world, probably. I think it's probably one of the most popular. Nearly everyone I know, definitely from my age group and upwards and downwards, I suppose, has a bit of an obsession with this film. Although maybe not as many are as obsessed as my guest here today, as you can see from her background.
What makes you say obsession?
I don't know. Maybe obsessed is a bit too strong a word. Maybe we'll find out through the course of today.
I don't give you that impression.
But no, she is an absolute super fan of this film and all things Disney. I don't think there's many that could rival her. Although some might make that claim that they could, but I think when they're put in the ring, as they say, there'll only be one winner coming out with a 3 count here. She is the woman behind this entire podcast network, because it's well, you know, behind every big man, behind every man there's a strong woman, and the man who started all this was the Dynamo, and who's behind him pushing him? It's yourself. So welcome. This is your first appearance on this show. I think you may have been on one Dynamo's Dozen a couple of years ago, but it was before we went on to the visual medium.
Yeah. That was my first ever podcast, and it was right back at the very start when he very first started his first podcast, and that was more kind of, I suppose, just having a chat about random stuff. But this is the first time I've been asked to come on and talk about anything else, you know what I mean, anything that I might have kind of an input on. So I'm kind of nervous, but we'll see how it goes.
I think I wouldn't worry about the nerves, because I think that's how everyone feels when they're first kind of brought on, and this is why I asked you to pick the film, because it's the best way to get over the nerves, is to talk about something that you're comfortable about rather than being thrown into something you're not. So you picked
something about this film.
You know a little bit. You know a little bit. You know, you've seen it. You've seen it once at least.
Seen it once or twice, like.
For those who can't gather which film it is, it's obviously going to be The Lion King, the 1994 version, the nice animated original version, which this has been redone as a live action. I don't think the live action is as good.
No.
For me, the reason the live action isn't as good is that I can't differentiate the characters enough.
For me,
Scar,
I suppose
it's just a cut in his eye, but if you can't, like, if you don't see that straight away, he's just pretty much the same character as Mufasa.
Yeah. Well, for me, like, I suppose I was so excited for the new one, because obviously I'm such a super fan of the 94 original. So I was so excited to see what they were going to do with the new one. And I actually got tickets to see it in the cinema in the 4D or 4K or something it's called, in World, and like, you know, they'd be running through the river and water be splashing in. It's the stampede scene and the seats are going like this, so it was like pretty good that way, but it didn't hit the way the original hit.
No, it doesn't.
It's like they done such a good job on the animation. Like, it was unreal, it was hyper realistic, but I think for me anyway, because it was so hyper realistic, the characters actually lost all their expression. Like,
definitely.
No, it was like watching animals. It was like watching real lions, just with their mouths moving. And they lost all their expression. It was harder to connect with the characters. Like, it just, I don't know, it didn't work well for me anyway. No, maybe other people enjoyed it, but
I enjoyed it to the point that it was, you know, the story was still the same. It's still The Lion King, so I still enjoyed it to that point, but I was the same as you. I couldn't connect to it the way I did the old film. Now, I did see somebody they haven't done it for the whole film, but what they did was they took the characters from the live action and they altered the faces to make them more cartoony, I suppose, like bigger eyes and more distinct features. And it was just a couple of stills of the characters, but that looked amazing. And I think had they done that and not gone so live action, like the live action bit of it actually being a line is pretty cool, but I think making the faces that much more different really would have worked, and I think it would have actually hit stronger had they had someone there that just said to them, maybe let's stick a little bit to the cartoon side. I mean,
Yeah.
it is a kids' film where no one's expecting, you know, hyper
Mm.
realism from this film, but
Yeah, exactly. It just doesn't work with, in my opinion, doesn't work with some movies. His John Favreau, who directed it, his kind of practice run, I think, was when he done The Jungle Book a few years previous.
yes,
And that was, I found I did actually like that movie. Now I don't know whether it's because I didn't have such a love for the original Jungle Book movie. Like obviously I'm a fan of it, but it wouldn't be like one of my big kind of favorites. So when I seen the remake of that, I did actually like that film. Now I don't know whether he kind of went overboard then, because he got such a good kind of reception from the Jungle Book remake, and everybody was raving about how good the CGI was. And I don't know whether he kind of took it just that step too far down with The Lion King, where it was literally just like watching lions run around in the wild just with their mouths moving. It was like
yeah,
a bit odd to me anyway.
Yeah, no, I think with Jungle Book, the characters are so different because obviously it's a snake, a bear,
Yeah.
a human boy. You know, if it looks like a bear, you know, there's only one bear anyway, so it's easy to differentiate. Whereas in this, all of the lions pretty much look the same as the next line over, which doesn't really work.
Exactly.
So
yeah, you
I
didn't
think
know who was who. Like it was
yeah,
just like, is that Sarabi? Is that Naled? Or I don't know. It's
yeah,
just a line. It could be anyone. Like I
yeah.
don't, yeah.
And it shows. I did look up the. I always look up the ratings for films. Now I never base a film off ratings because you know films are always personal.
Yeah.
But this film was released in October 21st of October 1994. And then the ratings are both for both critic and audience on Rotten Tomato for the original is 93% for both. So, which I think is pretty fair. Like, there's not a whole lot you can really say that's wrong with this film. And obviously, it hits hard for nostalgia for people who grew up watching it, and it still works today. To like, you could sit a young child down today, and I think it would still entertain them. But the newer version didn't rate as highly with critics or with an audience. So I don't think it's just you. I think an overall people didn't like that one as much.
I
Do you
mean,
have any idea what this? Sorry,
go on.
I was going to ask. Do you have any idea?
I think it was always going to be a risk to try and even touch this movie because it is such a big movie. Like, there's so much fan base for this, and so many people have such a love for the film. It's one of Disney's greats. Like, so it kind of was always going to be a risk to try and, touch that even. So I don't know. Like, I think the new film, it did actually do quite well. Like,
Yeah,
it made
did.
a lot of money. Like, so it wasn't technically a fail, but I don't know. It was always going to be.
I think if you're not comparing it to this, it's good.
Yeah.
It's just that when you compare it to the animation of this, I think it doesn't work out as well.
Yeah.
I do always look at the box office figures. The box office for this was, I think this is actually the biggest box office we've had. 1.084 billion.
Oh shit! Right, yeah. No, I did know it made a lot of money, but I didn't know it was that much.
That is higher than the box office for the newer one as well. Not by much. It's I say not by much. It's by point something billion, which is a lot of money. But in terms of, I suppose, in terms of Hollywood, a couple of million's not really that much money at all. But we'll just get into discussing the film a little bit. So the film obviously opens up with the iconic "Circle of Life" song. I'm not a big musicals guy, but I think the start to this, the song being the start, it really works well because it has the whole all the animals in the kingdom coming to see Simba being presented. I think it's a really solid start to a film. Like,
well, even from the very first note of that song, it just opens the film in such a way, like the sun rises and that voice just kicks in, and it really does just hit you. You're like, whoa, okay. Or it did anyway when I was a kid and I first seen it. It was really like, oh, what's this? Like it's just the way it's done, I think, with the sun rising and the colors and the reds and the yellows, and it's really like, okay,
it's very eye capturing, all right.
It pulls you in, especially with that first note. It's so strong, and it's like, right, okay, what's this? I'm interested.
And what it does well is it gives you the base storyline very quickly. New
Yeah.
Lion Cub being born. That's the start of the film, and then it jumps straight into basically what's going to be the storyline of the film, which is the animosity between Mufasa and Scar, because the next scene is essentially him going up to Scar and being like, "Why weren't you at the well, not coronation, but the presenting of
presentation of Simba
of my firstborn son and only born son, as it turns out as the rest of the film goes on." So we see that there's we kind of already have the idea of who's going to be the bad guy here, and I think they do a very good job of the two lines are so different. Like Mufasa is kind of beefy and thick, whereas you can see that Scar is quite skinny, and he says that he got the lion's share of the brains, but when it comes to brawn, he knew he had nothing against Mufasa. They've never explained where the scar actually comes from. There's been a few different explanations over the years. One is that there was a fight with Mufasa, which gave him the scar, and the other is that he tried to trick Mufasa, and other animals gave him the scar in that build-up.
Yeah, or I heard an interesting fan theory as well, that Mufasa's father, his mother, took Scar out. Scar's real name is supposedly Taka, before he got the scar. So the good fan theory is that he went out hunting with his mother one day and something went wrong and his mother died. And when Taka came home to their father blamed him on the mother's death and scarred him and kicked him out of Pride Lands. So that's when he became Scar. So I thought that was a quite interesting little fan theory. Like, it'd be kind of one that it sounds good to me. Like, adds to the story a little bit. Like,
I think all of them show that that Scar was kind of the forgotten son in a way. And that he knew he was never going to be king the way Mufasa was, and that he was kind of pushed to the side and kind of forgotten about, which makes you a little bit sympathetic to the character. But the rest of his actions throughout the film really get rid of that sympathy quite quickly, I think.
I don't know. I never felt sympathy for Scar, even as a kid. Like, I think Mufasa seems like a good brother. He seems like he's trying to include him. He wants him to be included in the family. He wants him to come and see Simba's presentation. Like, and I think there is a part in the film where he kind of, after what you were just talking about, when they had that first little confrontation in the cave after the presentation, and Scar's walking away and Mufasa kind of sighs and he says, "Oh, what am I going to do with him?" So it's like I think he is actually a good brother and he wants him to be included, but Scar's just like, "No, I'm just overrun with jealousy and I just can't see past it." So no, I never felt sympathy for Scar really. Like, I think he's just selfish,
I think that's the point, that they want you to show that, like, one is a good brother who's always trying to be inclusive, and the other one is he just pushes him away. He feels hard done by from his entire life, from whatever's happened to him, and that he just doesn't want to take that olive branch that's been extended and just wants to be left alone. Like, it's a real grouchy teenager sort of vibe I got from him. Like the don't include me, just leave me alone. But we see that Simba gets brought out to have a look at the Pride Lands after waking his dad up at sunrise. And he gets told that he can go anywhere he wants except that one kind of dark area over there, which, this is a little bit on Mufasa. Like, you don't tell a child you can't do something, because the first thing the child's going to want to do is do exactly that thing, which is what happens. He goes to Scar, and Scar shows that he did get the brains, because he's very manipulative and he lets slip.
Sounds like the most fun place in the world.
Did I say elephant graveyard? I shouldn't. Oh, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that one. Oh, so he tricks Simba and Nala into sneaking off there. But to get there, they have to lose their, I suppose, their handler, which is sent out after them. Zazu. You need to keep an eye on them. So again, this is the next kind of big song, I think, in it, is the "I Just Can't Wait to Be King." Again, I think that's done really well, and it has all the animals involved
Yeah.
and shows their love of Simba and obviously Mufasa, even though a lot of them would be hunted by lions. It
Yeah.
shows that Mufasa doesn't want the overhunting, so that they understand, like, okay,
Yeah.
we will be hunted, but we're not being hunted just for fun. It's only when they're hungry, so it's up
Yeah.
to us to avoid those times.
Yeah, which is a good message that kind of runs through the whole film, you know, the whole circle of life thing. And you see Mufasa talking to Simba about they eat the antelope and then the antelope become the grass, and then they die, they become the grass, the
And
antelope
the
eat the
antelope eat the
grass, all
grass.
that. I mean, it's like it runs through the whole film that it's kind of like as a world there is balance and we all need each other, you know,
Yeah,
for that balance to remain. And it's so true. Like, it's not just something in an animated movie. It's very true that we all depend on each other, and all species depend on each other to do their role, or else the world stops turning. Like, so it's a good message, I think, to have in a film for kids, like,
yeah,
because it is
and
very true. And if we're not careful with it, like, it could have really bad consequences. So it's good to kind of bring that idea to kids, I think, early
yeah.
in life.
And
So
it's also, like, it is in its own way educational as well, because lions are like that. Like, lions don't just hunt all the time. They hunt
yeah,
to eat. And the
yeah.
rest of it, like, there can be a zebra walking past a lion
If
20
they're not
minutes after it's
hungry,
eaten. If it's not
yeah.
hungry, it's not hunting you. You can just walk around, you're fine. Like,
And that's all animals. No animals kill for pleasure or for
well,
sport, or, like, I mean,
bar
that
one. And it's at the,
humans,
yeah,
yeah,
we're at the top of
we're
the
the
food
only
chain.
ones that do it. So, and it's always something that's bugged me. Like, but we won't get into that. That's a different
Yeah,
podcast.
that it is. That's its own show. But
But, yeah.
yeah, we see when they get sent to the animal graveyard or the elephant graveyard, we see why it's such a barren wasteland. Is that there's hyenas living there, and hyenas are known to just attack. They
Consume
won't
everything.
just eat. Yeah, they won't just eat when they're hungry. They'll just
Yeah,
always. They'll just attack all the time. Just stock up, stock up, stock up.
yeah,
Now
yeah.
we're introduced to just 3 hyenas at this point.
Yeah,
Two which seem to be, capable of their own thought, and then the third one, Ed, who's just kind of the 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 local idiot sort
comedic
of thing.
element.
Yeah, he's just there for comedy. Like, he can't talk.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
but they find the 2 lion cubs, Simba and Nala, hanging around and start hunting them down.
Yeah.
Which, that is what would happen, but we see that the area they live in is a wasteland, which
Yeah.
we then see later on in the film happens to all of Pride Land because they're allowed to hunt freely.
Yeah.
So it just shows that the elephant graveyard probably wouldn't be as bad if it was ruled over properly.
Yeah, exactly.
But they hunt them down, and Mufasa comes to the rescue, thankfully.
Yeah, one of my favorite bits in the film, because Mufasa is my favorite character in the film,
Yeah,
closely followed by Simba. But I always just love Mufasa. He's just such a he's just such a strong character. Like, and the way he comes in, that's one of my favorite bits when he comes to save them, and you see how scared the hyenas are of Mufasa because it's King Mufasa. Oh my god!
yeah,
Like, we're all terrified of him, and like the way Simba looks up to him and just wants to be like everything that he is. I just think he's a really good character. Like, it's my favorite anyway.
I think he's a great character as well, and it's the
Yeah.
next bit that I think really does it is when he sends Nala home with Zazu,
Yeah.
and then he
Yeah.
has Simba there, and he's explaining to Simba that he's not brave because he wants to be brave. He's brave when he needs to be
Right, it
brave.
has
Like,
to be. Yeah, exactly.
he doesn't go in there because he knows that that's where the hyenas are. He only
Yeah.
went there because he found out that's where Simba was.
Yeah.
And he explains that bravery isn't picking a fight. It's
Looking for trouble. Yeah.
it's being able to stand up for yourself when you need it, which is a great sort of
Yeah.
life lesson, which is, I think, something that Disney were very good at with these
Yeah.
films. Like, they're only small little scenes that you don't think about as a child. They're just, oh yeah, that's what he said, but it does
Yeah.
stick with you. And I think that's something that Disney were very good at. Like, it's hard to explain something like that to a child if you're just going
Yeah.
to sit them down, but to have it done in a film, the child
Yeah.
kind of just gets it from that. Like, they learn from seeing it.
Mm-hmm.
And
And
he,
that scene as well, where he says, Simba says, "But you're not afraid of anything," and he says, "Well, I was today.
yeah,
I was afraid of losing you," and it kind of leads you into, ultimately that love for Simba is what Scar uses to kill him.
yeah,
So
exactly.
that was like a little Easter egg leading up to what's going to happen. Like,
Yeah,
and I think,
that's it. They always leave you a little bit like, this is,
yeah,
just remember that he said this, and then we'll
yeah,
come back to that a little bit later. And I think that is great that they've done that.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
so the next kind of big scene is, and this is one that was kind of taken out of the newer version, is Scar's song.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
took this out and replaced it with Scar making a deal with the hyenas.
Yeah, which really annoyed me.
I think it annoys people because it gets rid of Scar's song. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that the making the deal with the hyenas actually does work as well, because beforehand it just looks like they just follow him blindly for no apparent reason.
Yeah.
But when he makes the deal with these, I don't know if it's something that you ever picked up on, but when all the hyenas are walking past him as he sings, they're in a goose step formation,
Yeah.
which is obviously
Yeah.
a big telltale sign of what the Nazis were.
Yeah.
And it showed that they were following him because he
Yeah.
was making the promises that they wanted to hear.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that it really like, as a child you don't recognize that. It's just kind of a, oh look, they're walking funny, but you understand that they now
Yeah.
follow him. They're his
Yeah.
followers.
Yeah. Visually, like anybody can tell, like, okay, he's the boss, and
Yeah,
they're all
he's the leader
following him.
here. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
all looking up to him, standing on top of that big rock up there, and they're all,
Yeah.
because they're all looking at him. You can see it. It's obviously just the same. Obviously, animation was quite expensive back then, so it's just the same scene replayed over and over.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it does work very well.
Mm-hmm.
And then
But I suppose in the original, the lyrics of Scar's song kind of explain why the hyenas are following him, because the lyrics of the song explain he's promising X, Y, and Z.
yeah,
If you
exactly.
stick with me, la la la. And while kind of explaining the whole situation through the song, you kind of get to see a bit more of Scar's personality, I think. And
Yeah, and I think that's what you lose in the new film when he just
yeah,
makes,
like,
when he just cuts a deal. I think you lose a
yeah,
lot of why Scar is the way he is.
yeah, exactly. Like, you lose any sense of the character again, like we were saying. It's just another line, and like, oh right, he wants this, that deal's done, grand. Like, you don't really get any sense of the personality, or so again, like, if you're asking me, I think it was done better in the first film, but that's
Yeah, I
obviously
definitely preferred it. I preferred it in the first film. When I was rewatching this
yeah.
recently now, I kind of played the two of them side by side in a
Yeah.
sense. I watched this and then I'd pause it every kind of 10 or 15 minutes and catch up on the newer one.
Yeah.
And just see the differences. The newer one's actually a little bit longer.
Yeah.
But it doesn't, there's nothing added to it.
Is there nothing added to it? Because I haven't seen it now since it came out in the cinema. I watched it once and went, no thanks, I want to see that again.
Nah, there might be
So
little bits added, but nothing added that adds to the film.
majorly, like,
Yeah, like
yeah.
nothing impacts the film really. It's just, oh, we've just put this in, and
Yeah.
if it wasn't there, it wouldn't have affected the film.
Yeah.
But the next thing we see is probably the biggest heartbreaking scene of the entire film.
Like, not for children. Like, not how, like.
No, and I think this is where Disney were quite good, because they do this in films where there is loss and there is tragedy.
Yeah.
And it does allow you to connect, but it's not over the top either,
Yeah.
We see Simba trying to escape from the stampeding wildebeests, which I always remember, not particularly from the film, but I don't know, did you ever play the games on the likes of Xbox, or on like the old Sega or the PlayStation?
No, I was a PC girl, so I had little Lion King games on the PC, which was I didn't even play. There was like color pages on them, so what I used to do was print out the color pages
and color them,
cut them out, and like play with them. So
no. So in the game, especially on the Sega one, it's basically I know you're a fan of Crash Bandicoot. So do you know do they get when Crash is running towards the screen?
Yeah.
Instead of like normally you look at him from the side, but in the
like if
boulder's
there's a
chasing you.
boulder or something
Yeah,
chasing
so
you,
in the old Sega version, that's what you were doing.
Okay.
Except it was all the wildebeests running at you, and there was little like rocks and
Accidentally,
stuff on the floor, so you needed to avoid the rock.
yeah.
But then when you went to the side of the rock, a wildebeest would rush up, and you needed to get back in. So I always remember from that because I used to get so frustrated trying to complete that.
Yeah.
Which, you know, I was a kid, so like I'm sure if I went back and played it now, it's probably not that difficult. But
Yeah.
for a child, it was just insane. It used to drive me mental.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
the whole scene is quite heartbreaking. The death itself isn't like the death itself is dramatic, but I don't think that's where the heartbreak is. I think the heartbreak is really when Simba inserts himself under the paw.
It still gets me, like
Yeah.
the big paw just
Over him.
lifeless. Oh, it just I can't. Like I'm 29 years old and I still can't cope with it. Like
yeah, it's a big scene, and obviously.
But for me, like I'm a very visual person, and it's just like not even when he's down at the bottom of the gorge or whatever, the bit where Simba's like looking, trying to find him in this mess, and he jumps out and he clings onto the rock and you can see him and it's like his nose and he's like digging his nose into the rock and there's like light coming behind him. It's just like, oh my god, it's just so epic. Like you're like, no, Mufasa, you have to make it. Like it's literally like, and then he runs around and of course Scar does what Scar does.
Yeah, but and because he runs around, he can't see up to the top anymore. So all he sees is his dad falling.
And even as he's falling, the way they done it, like, and they drew it, like he's falling and you're looking on top of him.
Yeah, it's a great scene, to be fair.
It's just amazing animation. Like it really is just, it's, you can't beat it for me anyway.
No, it's a fantastic scene. Like the whole thing of Scar digging the nails into the back of his hands.
That actually looked painful to me.
Yeah, they do it really well. Like, and if you've ever had a cat put its hands on yours and put out its claws, like that's a lion, so it's going to feel like that, but with a lot more pressure. So it's definitely not something you'd particularly want to happen to you. But yeah, you see him fall, and then obviously Simba kind of finds him on the ground after this and gets in under the paw, and we see Scar again. No compassion, no nothing, just you're going to be blamed. Like, you're going to be blamed for this.
Yeah.
And I know some people might look at this and be like, why would he think he's going to be blamed? It's a child, like.
But this is the thing, like even that part where Simba sees Scar and all he sees is his uncle. Yeah. And he actually runs to him like for comfort.
Yeah.
And he cuddles up into his paw. And Scar kind of puts his paw around him, but you can even see in the way it's drawn that Scar's just looking dead ahead, blank stare, like, you know.
Yeah, no care, no compassion, nothing.
Like it's so well done. I think it's just so well done for an animated movie.
Yeah.
And then of course what you're talking about, then he kicks into the manipulation, like, what have you done? You know, and it's just like as a child watching it, I remember going, oh my god, like how would I feel if I thought I was responsible for killing my dad? Like, you know,
exactly. And that's the thing, like people look at that and they say, why would Simba feel it was his fault? Like, how is it his fault? He's down there because Scar brings him there. We see that earlier. Scar brings him there and says, oh, your dad's on the way. So when you're looking at as an adult point of view, you're like, you know, it makes sense that it's obviously not your fault. Somebody else brought you there. Your dad, something happened. Your dad came to save you and then he died. It's not your fault. But you're like, this is a child. You know, a child doesn't put 2 and 2 together like that. The child goes, I was there, and because I was there, my dad's dead. And this parental adult figure to me is telling me I'm at fault. Yeah, exactly. The child is just going to accept that, like, it was my fault. Yeah. So he runs away. I think this is there's a slight difference between this scene now and the newer film. In this one, he runs away. The hyenas chase him, which happens in the new film as well, and he jumps down into the thicket. And because he's so small, he can maneuver underneath the thickets.
Yeah.
In the remake, the live action of it, it's just a big fall, and they just go, he couldn't have survived
Yeah,
that.
I couldn't survive
And I
that.
think
Yeah, yeah,
I didn't like that when I seen it, because I was like, I liked the idea that, you know, they were still willing to hunt them until they realized we're going to get hurt if we go into that
yeah.
thicket. So we'll,
Mhm.
and they, like in the animated film, they see him get out from underneath the thicket into the
Yeah, and
desert,
run
and
away.
they're just like, nah, just let him go. Like
See, they
he
think he's running into the desert kind
yeah,
of
there's nothing
part,
there for him. Just let him die out
and
there. It's fine.
they think he's just going to die of starvation or dehydration or whatever.
Yeah,
Which
exactly.
he probably would have if he didn't,
If he wasn't
or
rescued by
it didn't happen upon him. Yeah.
Timon and Pumbaa. I think these are great, and I think these are probably the two characters that were done well in the
Yeah.
in like the live anime. I think these two are the only characters that were done really well. They stuck
Yeah.
quite close to what the kind of, you know, childish
Yeah.
but also parental figures of Simba as he's growing up. You know,
Yeah.
they both fear him because of what he is, but
Yeah.
also realize that this is a child in need, and
Yeah.
look after him and raise him to be basically, I don't know if it's considered a vegetarian, because
I was gonna
it's not
say that.
meat, it's not meat, but it is other animals. So
Yeah. And I don't know realistically if a lion could sustain himself on
no,
bull. So like
he definitely couldn't
but
sustain himself and grow to the size of a fully sized lion. He
no.
would definitely be a malnourished lion of some sort.
Yeah.
But obviously, you have to kind of just accept, like, it's a children's film. They're not going to be like, yeah,
Exactly.
he ate all the other animals around.
He
Um,
grew up on Eat Pumbaa and
yeah, he ate Pumbaa and all Pumbaa's family, and that was it.
yeah.
There you go. But
Yeah.
no, they bring him and they show him basically a different life where, and this is another huge iconic song, the Akuna Matata song. They
Yeah.
just explain to him that, you know, you don't need to worry about things, like forget about your past and just continue living.
Yeah.
Which isn't a great message
No,
either for
not
kids,
really.
but I think that's rectified. It's a
Yeah.
good message to give a young child to, you know, like, don't worry about what happened at school. You know, everything's going to be fine. Tomorrow's another day. It's a good message to give a child, but then you do need to explain to them that eventually, you know, what happened in the past, you do need to,
Yeah.
you
You
need to
can't
get
run
past
away
it,
from bad things. Like bad
which
things
is,
happen and you need to face up to them sometimes.
yeah, which they eventually do come back to. They do
Yeah,
get him to face up to
exactly.
it
Which I think
eventually.
was the narrative the film was intending on going. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They show you kind of one extreme to the other. You know, like Timon and Pumbaa are extremely laid back and just, you know, no, don't really care about anything, and you know, you don't need to worry about it. And then I suppose they bring it back around to it's okay to be like that, but you still have to face up to your responsibilities, kind of thing.
Yeah, but they show him basically just a new life, like, you know, just live carefree, just do whatever you want, just kind of hang around with us, and we'll just wander, like we're just kind of drifters. We'll go wherever we want, and he's happy with that life until they start questioning what stars are, and he's reminded of something that his dad says, which brings back all the old pain.
Yeah,
and then
but that scene actually was I found as a kid like really really sad, because
it is sad. Yeah,
I was a very very sensitive child, and I hated anyone being bullied or laughed at or made feel stupid. That really just upset me. So that scene where they were kind of chatting shite, like, and Timon and Pumbaa are saying, oh, you know, whatever they think stars are, and it turns out Pumbaa actually gives the correct answer, like,
a really scientific answer.
Being stupid. But when Simba kind of says, oh, someone told me a long time ago, you know, that they were the kings of the past and they're looking down on you, and the two boys just break their hearts laughing at him, like, what are you talking about, you big dope? And as a kid, and he kind of just goes, and he just goes off. And as a kid, I was like, don't laugh at him. That's not nice. Like, you know what I mean? So I don't know whether that was just me, but I found that particular scene really sad. It's like, don't laugh at him. He's giving his opinion. Like, it's, you know, your opinions that were laughed at. You know?
I think that's the point of the scene, though. I think it's meant to, because when he gets up and walks off, the two of them realize that they've upset him. and
Yeah,
then they
exactly.
feel bad. And I think that is the point of that scene, to say that, like,
Yeah.
sometimes you might not agree with what someone says, and you might think it's very stupid and like, where did you get that from? But
Yeah.
you're better off to just, tell them, like,
Mhm.
that's not right. Like, don't laugh at them.
Yeah,
Don't
don't think
don't
that sounds
don't
right.
don't ridicule them and make fun of
Yeah.
them and make them feel stupid. And I
Yeah.
think that is the point of this scene. It's to teach that life lesson of,
Yeah.
it's not okay to make fun of people.
Yeah. It's not okay to laugh at other people's opinions. You might not agree with it, but don't laugh at it.
Yeah.
If you don't understand it, ask them why they think that and maybe try to learn something from them, maybe. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
And I think, again, that's something that Disney were very good at, like, they
Yeah.
were good at teaching these life lessons to young kids.
Mhm.
Then we see the return of Nala,
Yeah.
who
Another.
is
You keep saying this is like my favorite part of the film, like, and it's like 10 favorite parts, so I think I'm
yeah,
just gonna
well,
stop.
that's what, when something's your favorite film, the whole thing is kind of your
Yeah.
favorite part, isn't it? But
Mm.
she returns, uh, hunting Pumbaa
Yeah.
as a lion would, um, but is quickly cut off by Simba,
Yeah.
and we
Mhm.
see that Simba gets pinned again, which we
And
see
that's when
earlier
we
in the film when
realize.
they're younger, that Nala
Yeah.
always beat him in a fight,
Yeah.
which
Mhm.
isn't really great if you're meant to be, the king, that you're
Yeah.
constantly getting beaten.
Yeah.
It's not a great showing, but
Well, again, though, in real life, in lion prides, the women are
the
fairly
hunters.
tough, and
Well,
they're the
they're the
hunters.
hunters. Yeah, they get the
Yeah.
food, not the men. Yeah,
So it's probably not that far fetched that maybe a female lion would be well able for a male lion. Um,
yeah,
I don't know.
yeah. So I don't know. Would it, like, in theory, you would think that since he's the king, presumably
Mm-hmm.
he's the one that should be winning those fights. But
Yeah.
maybe hunt, like, the female lions are the more
Mm-hmm.
dominant in a fight like that.
They're
I didn't
tough
look it up,
cookies,
so
the female lions. Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
didn't look it up, but it could be very well true that they are. But
Mm-hmm.
she pins him, and then he recognizes that it is Nala.
Yeah.
And there cannot, like, there's only got to be a couple of years here, because lions don't take, they're not like humans. A
Yeah.
cub to a fully grown lion is maybe 2-3 years. It's not like, you're not
Yeah.
talking
Mm-hmm.
12 years on or anything. So
Yeah.
they're still kind of children. They're kind of in that teenage phase where they still remember their childhood, and they're
Yeah.
essentially just playing again now. But
Yeah.
they've grown where it's not just like that anymore for them.
Mm-hmm.
And we see him show her around his new home,
Yeah.
and she tries to convince him that he needs to come back.
Yeah.
Um,
Which he
which
doesn't
he's not
bother.
open to at all. He doesn't want to come
No.
back, and it's because of the fear of, he still believes he killed his dad. Like, it's never occurred to him
Yeah.
that it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't his fault yet. He still fully
Yeah.
believes that he killed his
But if
dad.
you're made believe something as a child,
Yeah, that's
even
the
if
thing.
it's true or not, it takes a lot to break that in adulthood. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Even though you might be grown and you might have a lot more sense of things, but if you have been made to believe something as a kid, it's very hard to break that.
yeah.
It's going to take something extreme to kind of go, oh shit, like that
I
was
think it's
actually
also
fucking
that
wrong.
he'd avoided thinking about it. I
Yeah.
think he'd avoided thinking about it at all. So there was no thought of, like, he'd still think about his dad, but he'd never think about what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's part of it as well, that he just kind of, it's in the past. I don't need to think about that.
Yeah.
But he says he's not going back
Mm-hmm.
until he's brought to a river by
Yeah.
Rafiki,
Yeah.
who you said earlier that Mufasa's your favorite character. I always thought Rafiki was always my favorite character,
Mm-hmm.
and I have no idea why he was my favorite character. I just always thought he was really funny in the film,
Yeah.
and he'd only
Yeah.
showed up a very short amount of time in the film. But
Yeah.
every time he was on the screen, I thought, yeah, this guy's pretty good. Like,
Yeah. Well, he was the glue, wasn't he? I mean,
yeah,
for him, nobody would have really known Simba was alive.
yeah,
He came at the right time because he got his scent in the wind
yeah,
after Nala had left. And he was the one that kind of showed him his dad in the reflection and made him realize, that he still lives on in you, and yet there's things that you need to finish. And he was the one that gave him that push. So he's the glue,
yeah. And you get that great scene of Mufasa in
Mm.
in the clouds, sort of in the
Yeah.
sky, and that
Yeah.
leads all back to the the kings of the past are
Yeah.
in the sky.
Yeah.
And he convinces Simba that yes, you do need to go back. It's been
Yeah.
too long. It's time to reclaim what's yours.
Yeah.
And then we see what Pride Rock has become,
Yeah.
and
Oh.
it's a desolate, like it's basically just the
Mhm.
elephant graveyard now, because
Mhm.
there's been an overabundance of hunting. Other
Yeah.
animals have moved on, realizing that we can't.
Left. Yeah.
No, well, we can't stay here. We're gonna die if we stay here. So like, let's just
Yeah.
leave.
Mhm.
So Simba comes back and sees this, and they decide that they need to get past all the hyenas, and that the only way to do this is to have Timon and Pumbaa put an apple in his mouth, and
Yeah.
Timon to dress up in a little
Little scared.
Hulu costume. Yeah,
Yeah.
which is a scene that's not in the newer film, but I think that's
No.
that was one of the best scenes in the old film, like in the
Yeah.
original.
Yeah. Because it was the only way they could do their part, I suppose. Like, because that's who they were. They were kind of a comedy duo in the film.
Yeah,
So they're not. Yeah, I mean, let's be real. A warthog and a meerkat are not going to be able to go up against a lion or a hyena. So what could they do to help? It was the only thing they could do to help was be the distraction, and the way they done it was very funny.
yeah, and
And
I think the comedy is what really holds it.
yeah,
It takes the seriousness out of the situation a little bit,
yeah,
which if it's a film for adults, you're kind of like, yeah, don't take that out. But when it's for children, you're like, you need to give them something to just
yeah.
enjoy,
But that was the
for
thing about the new film. You couldn't have any of that in it
no,
because it was so like hyper realistic.
yeah, you
Which
couldn't
is
just have the little jokes and the little like,
yeah, which is why I didn't think it really worked. Another reason why I didn't think it really worked
yeah.
anyway.
Well, I think that's something that they kind of forgot, that
Yeah.
this is a children's film. Like, okay,
Hmm.
adults do enjoy it, but this is a children's film. Like, you need to
Yeah.
remember that
Hmm.
you need to keep a child's attention, and if everything's
Yeah.
sad, the child isn't going to stay watching it. They're just gonna, I don't like this, and turn it off.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Simba gets up onto the rock, and this is a great scene where they see Simba jump down after Scar strikes Nala, or sorry, not Nala,
Rabbit.
Sarabi, and Simba jumps down, and Scar's first reaction is that this is
You think this
Mufasa.
was better? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And they all think this until Simba announces that it's him,
Yeah.
not his dad.
Yeah.
And Scar, again, you can still see the manipulation of Scar here of,
Yeah.
why don't you tell them what you did?
Hmm. Yeah.
Knowing full well that, like, he knows that
Mhm.
Simba didn't do anything wrong, but he
Yeah.
knows he still has that pull and that control over
And again,
Simba.
you can kind of, like for me, who was a very visual person, you could kind of feel what Simba was feeling by
Yeah,
the way they animated that scene, by the way Scar was circling him around and around and around, and Simba's doing this and that, and he's just going on and on and on with his manipulation. And it is like you could almost feel how Simba might have been feeling, kind of going, right, he's all around me, like I'm so just disorientated now. I don't know what to think. I don't know what to believe. So that was another scene that kind of visually for me was done really well.
yeah, and the panic in his voice as he's trying to explain
Mhm.
it. No, 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 I
Yeah,
didn't, I didn't mean
yeah,
it. That the panic. It's
mhm,
not just I didn't do that. He's not
yeah,
willing to confront it yet.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and he gets knocked off the rock, and he's
yeah.
hanging in the same position as his
Dad,
dad
yeah,
was, and we see
mhm,
the lightning strike the tree, which sets
yeah,
the fire. And I think
yeah,
that's a great scene, because it's
mhm,
not it's the same scene,
mhm,
but not the same either. It's a
yeah.
different danger that's at him now
Exactly. It was wildebeest for his dad. It's fire for
for
him,
him.
but it's kind of the same, like hanging over the danger. Is
Yeah,
he gonna fall or is he not? Like, is he gonna fall the way his dad fell,
yeah.
or is he gonna be able to get back up?
And this is where I think they did a great job. Scar, as always, the villain tells, just
Mhm.
before he kills someone, he tells them, oh, yeah,
Well,
I did it. Like, yeah, he
yeah,
admits it, um,
yeah,
which fires Simba up to pounce up
mhm,
and pin him down,
mhm,
which, and then he forces him to admit what he did.
yeah,
Whereas in the new film, that's not what happens.
yeah,
In the new film, all the lionesses hear him say that he saw Mufasa, and you're like,
didn't have the same impact.
no, it
Like,
doesn't.
why did they change that?
Yeah,
Like,
it makes
yeah,
Simba look weak again, because it's like
yeah,
you still weren't able to prove your innocence. Your mum had to
yeah,
come to your rescue here. Like,
yeah.
this is meant to be a coming of age story, you know, like he's learned that he didn't do anything wrong,
Yeah,
and now
but
he's
the
going to
feeling
sort
in
it
the
out.
first film when Simba does pounce back up off that rock and finally kind of, tells Scar what's what, he even stands on his throat. He puts
Yeah,
his paw on his throat and you can hear him going,
yeah,
and you're kind of going, yes, finally, he's getting him. But in the new one, you're just like, oh, yeah, they found out, great.
yeah. Okay, they found out, and
Like,
yeah, let's
yeah,
just get to the final fight scene, I
yeah,
suppose. But yeah, the original is definitely the way that it should have been done, where
yeah,
they had Simba
mhm,
be the one that announces what really happened.
yeah,
Um, but we see this is where the hyenas and the lions start to have their big fight, where
mhm,
Simba and Scar split off to have their separate fight.
yeah,
Um, and Scar says that, you know, when Scar notices that he's defeated, he falls back again onto the brains. You know, okay,
yeah.
let's manipulate
You're
this.
all the people.
It wasn't
Yeah.
me. It was the hyenas. The hyenas did it to
Yeah.
me. The hyenas. And
Mm.
Simba still isn't willing to kill a family member.
No. Yeah.
So he just tells Scar the same thing he was told. Just run.
When he was
Get
a
out of
kid,
here.
which was a great full circle, I thought.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which is,
Mhm.
again, the whole story that they tell is that everything goes, life is like a circle, you
Circle,
know?
yeah.
The
Yeah.
circle of life. He goes, this is what you said to me. I'm going to say the same. But
Yeah.
Scar pretends he's going to sneak off and then
Hmm.
throws the fire in his eyes
Yeah.
and gets thrown down the cliff
Yeah.
to where the hyenas are there, and he's like,
Hmm.
ah, yes, my friends, let's go and regroup. But they've noticed that
They've
all
heard
the
him.
yeah, all the blame's been put on us now. Hang
Yeah.
on, you're just manipulating us the way you manipulated them. And
Yeah.
this is a bully, you know, like Scar. That's what Scar is in this. He's just a bully,
Hmm.
manipulating people, tricking them into doing what he wants.
Yeah.
And it finally catches up to him when the hyenas presumably kill him.
That's what we're led to believe.
Yeah, they all
I'm
attack him.
pretty sure they do kill him. And you see the shadow and they jump on him and the noises and the
Yeah,
fire kind of just and we don't hear about Scar
yeah, we hear nothing
after
more
that.
from Scar ever again, so
So
presumably dead.
presumably he's killed,
Yeah,
yeah.
and then the film ends the way it started again, with the whole circle of life, with
Yeah.
Simba and Nala's child being presented by Rafiki to the
But
entire animal kingdom.
we can skip the part where Simba finally takes the throne
Oh, where
and
yeah,
he walks up that rock and the rain is raining heavily and the rain puts the fire out
yeah,
and eventually he walks up that rock and the rain is washing away all the skulls and the badness and he gets to the top and he lets out what I think fans of the film call the magic roar, Simba's magic roar, and he does this big roar to kind of say, right, I'm back, I'm home, I'm taking the throne now, this is my home, and everything just comes back to life and
yeah.
everything's green again and everything's prosperous, and that's when you see um
The new
their
child.
cub being
Yeah,
presented to the
that I might be wrong, but is that roar the first time that Simba roars in the whole film
I
as
think
an
it
adult
is,
lion?
yeah,
I think because
yeah,
earlier in the film we see him try to let out a roar as a
yeah.
cub, which obviously he can't accomplish, and
Yeah,
that's where the stampede comes from, because he's brought
yeah,
down there and told this is where you learn your roar.
yeah,
So to finally see him,
mm,
step into that the king's
yeah,
role and have the male lion
hmm,
roar, it really
yeah,
does just show that how much he's grown and taken
yeah,
into the role that he was born to have.
hmm, yeah,
Um, but yeah, we end there, and it's a great film. Like, from start
hmm,
to finish, there's no real downtime.
no,
Everything has a meaning,
yeah. But I
which
mean, we went
is
through every scene there of the film, and
yeah,
every scene was great. Do you know what I mean? There
yeah,
wasn't any scene where you were kind of sitting there going, "Okay, yeah, what's next?" Like every scene captivated you.
yeah.
Every
And I
scene
think
had
it needs to
a
be like that
message.
for children. Children
Yeah,
get bored very quickly. If you bring a child to the
mhm.
cinema and it's not entertaining the whole way
Oh
through,
God,
they're
love
going
you.
to they're going to be wandering around the cinema and stuff.
Yeah,
Which is why you need especially for things like Lion King and stuff, which, you know, we would have seen as children, you need late night showings of these films, because I know the idea is that they're for kids, but adults already have a vested interest in these. So you need late night showings, because I don't want to go and see something like this when someone's there with, you know, when loads of people have brought their kids. One, because I'm not bringing a kid and it looks a little bit weird, but two, you can't concentrate on the film because
this head.
but I mean, that's fine because it's at home. But you know, like if you're sitting if you and Ian are sitting in a cinema and it's just you and then a load of families, it's kind of like, why are the two of them here? And you're then distracted by the fact that there is kids running around, and you're kind of like, I just want to enjoy the film. Can this stop? So you do need to have these type of films on later, so that people can go and watch them when it's just, you know, just adults watching them. Like, it does need to be done as well, but you still need to keep it entertaining, which the newer film I don't think did as well. The live animated version. This one's definitely the better of the two.
100%. Jesus, there's not even a competition in my mind anyway.
But I think that pretty much covers the Lion King. I don't think there's a whole lot we've left out.
I think so, yeah. Covered pretty much everything, I think.
I don't think there's much more that can be covered on the Lion King. It's been covered quite extensively. But it was great. It was great to have you on, Rachel. And
thanks for having me.
I hope you didn't feel too nervous. As you said at the start, you were feeling a little bit nervous, but
I did. But as time went on, I kind of relaxed. Get me talking about Lion King, I'll be grand.
As I said, once you pick something that you're into, it's a lot easier to start going. But I was delighted to have you on, and if I ever have, well, not if I ever, when I do another Disney film, I'll definitely have you back on, because you seem to be the one that that knows their stuff. Whereas I've watched the films and I'm like, yeah, I enjoyed that. That was good. But I don't know all the in-depth things that you would know. And I definitely don't have the collection. I'm doubting you have the collection for all of the Disney films as you do for the Lion
maybe
King.
Not this extensively.
Not to that extent, but there's still there's a few bits and pieces there, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But no, it's great to have you on. And I will have you back on, definitely, as long as you don't hate this after seeing it.
No, I don't think so anyway. But
I don't think you will either. I think I've enjoyed it, so hopefully everyone else will enjoy it. But it was great to have you on, and it was great to see you, because I obviously haven't been able to see you since lockdown's kind of come in. So hopefully once lockdown is lifted, we'll be able to meet up with yourself and Ian and go out for something to eat somewhere and
talk about Lion King over a pint.
Have a good chat about Disney over a nice drink.
Yeah.
But that's all for this week, guys. So thank you and good luck. Well, it's time for that part of the show that you all love, the advertisements for our sponsors. I know. None of us really like listening to these, but the truth is that we wouldn't be able to bring you this content without them. So let's just get down to it. First off, Wrestling Mania, the top floor of Stephen's Green Shopping Centre. Really good shop for all of your wrestling needs, whether that's DVDs, title belts, pop figurines, other collectibles, t-shirts, and if you like boxing and MMA, he has stuff there for you too. If he doesn't have something that you want, you can ask him. He'll order it in. No problems. Really nice guy, the owner of this shop. So get on down to Wrestling Mania on the top floor of Stephen's Green Shopping Centre. Oh, what's that? A pandemic? Well, that doesn't mean he's closed. Catch him on Facebook. Just send him a message. He'll sort you out. No problems asked. And our other sponsor, Peter Hart Graphics. Now, this guy has done most of, if not all of the graphics for the Dynamo's podcast network. Really good stuff, guys. Seriously, this is top quality stuff. And he doesn't charge a bomb for it, which is the greatest part. If you need any sort of graphic designed, it's Peter Hart Graphics at gmail.com. That's Peter, P-E-T-E-R, Hart, H-A-R-T-E, Graphics, G-R-A-P-H-I-C-S at gmail.com. This guy is the easiest person I've ever worked with when it comes to making a graphic. You give him your ideas, he'll come back with something similar to what you wanted, and then if it might be exactly what you want, and if it's not, he is so open to criticism and tweaks, and he'll be back to you as soon as you give him what you want updated on that. This is easy stuff to get done, But actually, if you tried to do it yourself, you'd realize just how difficult it is to make it look smooth and clean. Not a problem with Peter Hart Graphics. Check out his stuff on his Facebook page, Peter Hart Graphics.